people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Current reigning undisputed middleweight champion Claressa Shields on the Gabriel's rematch. I don't want a unanimous decision this time. I want the knockout.
To date, only one woman has ever knocked out Hannah Gabriels, and that's the Dominican Republic's Oxandia Castillo in their first fight.
Hannah Gabriel's avenged that loss in the second. Can Claressa Shields stop Hannah Gabriels?
She wants to.
I'm gonna finish the job this time, Shields vowed during the press conference held last Tuesday in Detroit to formally announce their June 3rd DAZN main event. I beat her unanimously after being knocked down. This time, I don't want a unanimous decision. I want the knockout.
Can she get it?
The Hannah Gabriels she'll be facing in June is an older and much less active fighter than she was when they first met.
Hannah's last fight was 2 years ago, in March of 2021.
She's had one fight, just one fight, in the last 3 years. She sat out all of 2020, only boxed once in 2021, didn't box at all in 2022.
It's one fight in the last 3 years.
For her last fight, she weighed in just above light heavyweight, just above at 177 pounds. She'll have to boil down to 160 pounds for this fight. The knockdown pissed me off, admitted Shields. It was a flash knockdown. I don't know if Mark Taffet, Shields' manager, will recall, but I was in the back after the fight after winning. I was very upset. Mark said, Claressa, what's wrong? I was like, I want to fight her some more. Mark, make sure you get me the rematch. She's able to get knocked out. It's happened to her before. I'm able to get knocked down. It's happened to me before. But I got up and I won. I'm fighting here in Detroit. I'm fighting in front of all of my friends, all my family, and in front of the United States. Hannah Gabriels is in for a world of trouble. This fight is going to solidify what I've been saying. There's no girl, and not many men, that can get in the ring with me and take me.
A few passing thoughts.
Over the years, Hannah Gabriels, a multi-weight champion at junior middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. Over the years, she's proven she's been one of the best fighters around, but I don't know that here today that's what she still is.
She's barely active.
40 years old, boiling all the way down to 160 pounds. She hasn't made anything near 160 in years. You want my honest opinion? I mean no offense, but this looks like a layup fight.
Like Claressa wanted one.
Claressa made a rematch with Savannah Marshall contingent upon the rematch happening in America. Knowing that Boxer is based out of the UK, Boxer and Sky, who paid for the first fight. So how do you expect them to pay for a rematch if you want it in America?
They don't promote shows here. They're based out of the UK.
Claressa Shields' longtime promoter, Dimitri Salita, at least at or around the time these talks were happening, he didn't have a platform deal with anybody to bankroll a fight like that in America, so how was it supposed to happen?
It wasn't.
Oddly enough, Claressa Shields wasn't completely averse to fighting in the United Kingdom. She wasn't. She said she'd be willing to fight Natasha Jonas there.
But not Savannah. Not in a rematch.
So what's the difference between fighting Savannah Marshall in the UK and fighting Natasha Jonas in the UK? And I'll tell you the difference.
What?
The Jonas fight is a much easier fight than the Marshall fight, the Marshall rematch.
That's the difference.
I'm not contesting the outcome of the first fight. The first fight with Claressa and Savannah. I'm not contesting the judges' scorecards and their decision. I'm just giving it to you straight.
Yeah.
A fight with Savannah, a rematch, is much more difficult than a fight with Natasha.
I'm not telling you Claressa didn't win. She won, but she had to work for it.
Whereas with Natasha, she'd have size on Natasha, youth on Natasha, likely power on Natasha. Natasha's older and smaller.
Likely slower, too.
Claressa Shields would have every advantage in a Natasha Jonas fight. A Natasha Jonas fight she was willing to have in the UK. Just not a Savannah Marshall rematch. And here today, I see her fighting Hannah Gabriels here stateside, and I ask myself, is she making the same money boxing Hannah again that she could have made boxing Savannah again.
I don't think Hannah Gabriels can put up the same fight in 2023 that she put up years ago when she first fought Clarissa.
That was 5 years ago, you understand? 5 years.
In the last 3 of the 5, Hannah's only fought once.
And that was 2 years ago, so I'm not going to pretend that boxing Hannah again is as difficult as boxing Savannah again.
You stop beating around the bush and skip the foreplay.
I feel like Savannah took something out of Clarissa Shields even though Clarissa won. I feel like Savannah Marshall is the biggest puncher Clarissa has fought in the pro ranks, and even though Clarissa won, and she did win, I feel like that fight might have taken something out of her, and she wasn't trying to run it back, not right away.
No.
You were willing to go to the UK for Natasha, but not Savannah.
Why?
It's not like they were going to pay Clarissa peanuts on a dollar. They were going to pay her well to run it back with Savannah Marshall. Likely more money than she stands to make fighting Hannah again.
This is who she's fighting.
That fight might have taken something out of Clarissa, or at minimum, she knows it's not as easy as it looks.
It's not as easy as some people made it out to be. Clarissa has her pride.
She's gonna put on a brave face, but I think that fight either took something out of her, or she knows it's not easy.
I'd pick Savannah Marshall to knock out every single opponent Clarissa Shields has fought, Hannah Gabriels included.
That is a testament to Clarissa's durability and her intestinal fortitude. She didn't get knocked out, but she took a lot of punches over the course of 10 rounds.
Savannah's one of the biggest punchers, if not the biggest puncher anywhere at or around these weights. Is it possible she left a dent in Clarissa?
The fight with Hannah reads like a layup to me.
A layup fight.
I feel like that's what Clarissa wanted after a hard-fought victory over Savannah. She wanted an easy one. That's why she was willing to go to the UK for Natasha, but not for Savannah.
I'm not knocking her. I'm just saying.
I don't think she's making with Hannah what she could have made with Savannah.
So then why run it back with Hannah?
Because it's easier. It's easier, and she'll have home field advantage.
Even if it's for less money.
In other news, on the heels of this past weekend's mega match, Tank vs. Garcia pay-per-view buys well over 1 million, according to DAZN employee who worked the event. That brings the ballpark figure for this pay-per-view anywhere in between 600,000 and over 1 million. Neither number would surprise me. Ade Oladipo, who worked the fight for DAZN in Las Vegas, revealed on his YouTube channel that he heard the fight achieved massive buys. I'm hearing it's done incredible numbers. Over 1 million. Comfortably. Over 1 million. I'm hearing like 1.3, 1.4 million pay-per-view buys. DAZN, I know, were very, very happy with their pay-per-view buys. DAZN alone, I think, has done around 450,000 buys. I didn't just pluck that number from thin air. I kind of know that could be the number. Showtime, I think, done well over 700,000.
700,000. Earlier this week, boxing insider Rick Glacier stated that he's putting the ballpark figure for the show at around 600 to 700,000 buys. Could those buys be the Showtime numbers?
Tack on the additional excess from the DAZN platform, approximately 450,000, and that puts you over the hump. That puts you at over 1 million.
Passing thoughts.
Wouldn't surprise me if a day's numbers end up checking out, but there is a question as to why that is. Gervonta Davis has already been on pay-per-view 5 times before this past weekend's fight. What's the difference between this pay-per-view and the 5 that came before it?
What's the difference? This guy's never come close to 500,000, let alone over 1 million. So what sets this pay-per-view apart?
What's the difference between this box office fight and the 5 that came before it?
Ryan Garcia.
That's the short answer. Ryan Garcia. That is the added value that Ryan Garcia brought to the table. Now, don't misunderstand me.
Don't.
This doesn't mean that Ryan Garcia is going to move on from this and do these huge numbers all on his own. It's the synergy from both. The synergy from both Ryan and Gervonta that led this box office fight to perform better than any Davis fight before it.
Synergy.
2 names, 2 separate guys with 2 separate sets of fans. That's what led this fight to do as well as it did.
That's it.
The disconnect is that many are heralding the success of this pay-per-view as Gervonta Davis's unofficial coronation as the new face of boxing.
Is that right?
They're basically giving him all the credit because he won the fight, when that's not exactly how the economics work.
People bought the fight before he won it, you understand? They bought the fight because they wanted to watch it. Now, why did more people want to watch this fight than any of his other fights?
Ryan Garcia. It's because of Ryan fucking Garcia.
There's always been a question hanging over Ryan Garcia's head. Ryan Garcia, who seems to have achieved a lot, and I mean a lot of notoriety, not because of a fight that he won or a fighter that he beat, a belt he procured, but because of his social media presence.
He's got millions upon millions upon millions of followers by way of his social media, and a lot of his notoriety comes from there.
So the question hanging over Ryan's head all this time has been, if he can turn even a fraction of those social media followers into paying customers, paying consumers, because it don't cost nothing to press follow on Instagram.
But if he can actually turn a fraction of those social media followers into paying customers,
I think that's what we're looking at.
the marquee value in that, well, it would really be something. And I think that's what we're looking at here. The added interest in this Gervonta Davis fight isn't specific to Gervonta Davis. It's because Ryan Garcia was involved.
Yep.
And once you remove him from the equation,
You beat him already.
now what are your numbers going to look like? What are your numbers going to look like when you don't have Ryan Garcia and his loyal social media following to help you sell a show, to help you sell a fight? I know what the numbers are going to look like. They're going to look like what they looked like before.
200,000, just north of 200,000.
Now, he could do a lot better than 200,000 with a Devin Haney, and he could do a lot better than 200,000 with a Shakur Stevenson, but even when he was with Mayweather Promotions, there always seems to have been an aversion to facing either one of those two guys, either one of those two fighters. Floyd Mayweather mentioned them both by name, saying they should just fight each other and leave his guy alone.
And before you go telling me about the sides of the street, what sides of the street the guys are on, sides of the street, Ryan Garcia was on another side of the street. He was over there at Golden Boy Promotions, boxing on DAZN.
Ryan's not a two-division champion like Shakur Stevenson, and he's not an undisputed champion like Devin Haney. He is not as accomplished a fighter as they are.
Yet they were willing to fight him.
Work with him, do a fight with him, though when it comes to them, the attitude is very different.
It's the way it was before, when Gervonta was still with Mayweather Promotions, and that's the way it is now.
That's the way it is. I told you guys on repeat here on the channel, I told you guys 2, maybe 3 years, Gervonta Davis would sooner fight Ryan Garcia than any of the other kids.
It's the most reward for the least risks. Ryan doesn't pose the risk to Gervonta that Shakur might, or Devin might.
It's the most reward for the least risks.
Now that you moved up, you know, that's the top 3 in the pecking order right now. It's him, Stevenson, and Haney. Do you feel like he'd beat both of them?
I have no interest in answering those questions because they do not align to anything important and relevant in the boxing world.
Pay attention to this now. They're talking about Shakur Stevenson. They're talking about Devin Haney. These guys are champions. Rolly isn't.
Not yet.
Though it might soon change, as ridiculous as that sounds.
Well, Stevenson, I think recently.
They don't align to anything important in the boxing world or in my boxing world.
Just want to ask you this one because it does apply to you.
No.
Okay, all right.
I'm telling you straight up, it does not apply to my boxing world.
Do you see? It's already starting. It's already beginning. They're set to do to Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson what they did to Terrence Crawford for many years.
It's beginning.
It already started. It already started when Floyd told those guys to fight each other and leave his guy alone, back when that was his guy.
I'm over here with Al Heyman and PBC. It does not apply to my boxing world. I do not care about them. They're not my weight division.
I know you read. Is that some laws of 48 laws of power shit? Like,
No.
okay.
No, it just...
No, that's just what Al Heyman tells these guys to say whenever the names of Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson are brought up.
That's what that is.
You can't use sides of the street as an excuse when you guys just made a fight with Ryan Garcia, a guy who was on a different side of the street than your guy.
So is sides of the street really the problem?
Is that what it is? Or is it the risks versus rewards ratio? With Ryan, you had the least risks for the most rewards. With those two,
Not so much.
I'm indifferent towards them and their careers. I don't care about them. I don't care nothing about them.
why would he? He thinks after the Ismael Barroso fight, if he wins, they're going to run it back, him and Gervonta. He's got his eyes fixed on a rematch. So why would he care about Shakur? Why would he care about Devin?
Why?
He thinks he may be on the eve of a Gervonta Davis rematch, and I don't put that past them. I don't. Rolly said, let's be honest, man. Tank's toughest opponent by far has been me.
Tougher than Ryan, maybe, but not tougher than Isaac Cruz. Isaac Cruz took Gervonta Davis the distance. He took him all 12 rounds. You got knocked out.
While he may not be Gervonta Davis's toughest opponent to date, he may very well get a second fight. He may very well get that rematch. If he wins the WBA title against Ismael Barroso, who's standing in for Alberto Puello after Alberto's Vada fiasco.
They might do a second fight at 140 pounds.
I mean, think about it. What's there left for Gervonta Davis to do at 135?
I don't think he's going to fight the winner of Haney versus Lomachenko, especially if Vasil Lomachenko wins.
And if he doesn't, and Devin Haney emerges the victor, I don't think Devin Haney is going to go for all the catch weight and rehydration clauses, the weight stipulations he used on Ryan.
Like the coward that he is.
First results aside, Romero is firmly of the belief that a sequel against Davis is simply inevitable. Me and him are gonna run that shit back. I'm gonna get my world title May 13th, and then me and him are gonna run that shit back.
It's a distinct possibility Gervonta fights this guy again.
And if he does, it'll become that much more obvious, that much more apparent, that the robust numbers this past weekend's fight did have more to do with Ryan and less to do with Gervonta, because we've seen what Gervonta Davis is good for without Ryan.
Hell, even if he doesn't fight Rolly in his very next fight, even if he doesn't have a rematch with that guy and he stays at 135, who's he gonna fight there? Gary Russell? Chris Colbert?
You think you're gonna do with those guys what you just did with Ryan? Who's he gonna fight?
Frank Martin? De Los Santos, that Dominican guy that beat Rayo?
You think you're gonna do with those guys what you just did with Ryan?
You're not.
Gervonta Davis's deliberately obtuse faction of fanboys would have you believe that the pay-per-view did as well as it did due to him and him alone. And moving forward, depending on who he fights, you'll see a dramatic decline in box office buys.
Because these guys ain't got the following that Ryan Garcia's got.
Now, if you fought Shakur or you fought Devin, you could do decent buys with those guys, but those fights are a lot more risky than the one you just had.
And those guys aren't going to let you jerk them around the way Ryan let you jerk them around.
They're not. This delusion that Gervonta Davis is somehow the face of boxing based on a fight that Ryan Garcia helped himself.
That delusion is propagated by very insecure individuals who live vicariously through Gervonta Davis.
They're fragile egos. They can't stand the idea that someone they identify with isn't as successful as they think he is, isn't as influential, admired, or revered.
I'm not gonna step on eggshells to coddle your fragile fucking ego.
Gervonta Davis could have fought this weekend against anybody other than Ryan Garcia, and I guarantee you it wouldn't have did the numbers that it did, because Ryan Garcia added that value to the show.
Go back to fighting PBC guys and watch how fast that bubble bursts.
You grifters, you snake oil salesmen, you con men,
Liars.
cowards. You got lucky that you found a guy that poses the least risks for the most rewards, but he's the only one of his kind.
There ain't 2 and 3 and 4 Ryan Garcias lying around for you to keep busy with. The only way you can continue to do strong numbers at the box office is by facing strong opponents, strong opposition. And that ain't a Rolly Romero rematch.
You're already hearing Rolly Romero singing a familiar tune. He doesn't even want to discuss Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson, and I don't doubt the PBC's ability.
We've seen this before.
Denying the existence of a fighter, belittling and berating other fighters that are on other sides of the street whenever it's convenient.
We've seen this before.
And all the while, Gervonta Davis, a small faction of mouth breathers, will herald him as the face of boxing for a fight that Ryan helped himself.
It's obvious, too, to any logical individual, but that's just it. These are illogical.
Emotional, belligerent.
But as soon as you get this guy in the ring with somebody other than Ryan Garcia, those numbers are gonna nosedive.